Well, let's hope the world's ready for this one. Welcome to Prepper Nation. I am John. Thank you very much for being here, for hitting thumbs up, hitting subscribe. Truly appreciate that. If you're brand new to the channel, welcome. For the rest of you, bunch of usual suspects, y'all bunch of rowdies. Appreciate y'all being here. So let's get right into it. Interesting conversation this morning, at least. I think it's an interesting conversation. This came up during the War Daddy chat yesterday. So I got to start with a story, and it's not to bore you, and I promise it's going to feed into prepping. Okay, so just hang with me. For those that don't know, I'm a huge fan of retro games. There's Pac-Man. I love me some Atari 2600. Yeah. Oh, it's hot. And I was on the message boards for Atari a couple of nights ago. Couldn't sleep. And there was a question that popped up on there, and somebody was just asking straight up, are people really going to care in 20 or 30 years about the games that we're collecting? Because most of us won't be here anymore. Our kids don't care. They've got Nintendo Switch and stuff like this. Feels like we're supporting a dead medium at some point. This physical media is just most of it's going to a landfill, is what they were saying. And it really hit home. Um, Not just with the games, though. This started my mind working. Again, it was like 1:30 at night, wife's asleep, Miss Nation's snoozing, son. And it got me going, it got me thinking, because America is becoming quickly an all digital society. I mean, an all digital world, but especially here in America and Japan and China and a few other places, quickly it's being ushered into an all digital world, if you will. And this is problematic for several reasons. A couple get talked about quite a bit in the prepping community, and rightfully so. Tracking your shopping habits, their ability to track you once money becomes all digital, folks, and we're headed that way. There's no way around it at this point, unfortunately. Once everything is all digital and you no longer have, gold backed money, you no longer have paper fiat, and they hand you numbers on a screen, it's going to come with a lot of caveats, and there will be a lot of requirements in order to access and use said money. But I digress. Total control, if you will. Um, and we're fast approaching a society where, and we've talked about this before, but we're approaching a society here in the United States, at least, where you either play ball, um, and you submit to the system, or you're not going to be allowed to participate whatsoever. If you're not willing to submit to their demands, you don't have access to your funds anymore. So that's part of the hustle. But there's another concern about this all digital world that's coming. And again, we started to get into it yesterday. And as I shut down the War Daddy exclusive stream, I said I really want to talk about this tomorrow because it's a huge concern. And that is physical media disappearing. Starting to see it. Okay. Again, this is not just video games. I've noticed, like, with your newer Xbox, newer PlayStation, all this stuff, the games are beginning to disappear and they're turning into download cards and digital cards and things. This has been going on for a while. I've started to notice that your Blu-ray sections at your stores, matter of fact, Best Buy is getting rid of them altogether. Your physical media is starting to disappear and it's becoming download codes. A lot of your books that used to be there, they're starting to whittle down as well. Um, and this is problematic for several reasons. When you get into books, which is what we were talking about yesterday, specifically history books, and I mean, let's face it, the Bible. the best-selling book of all time. We're fast approaching a society where you're only going to have access to this stuff digitally. And the problem becomes who revises and converts it over to digital form. Somebody yesterday, as a matter of fact, said a lot of the bigger churches now are pushing the Bible app versus the good old fashioned paper Bible. And again, this is problematic because when you look at movies and things, it's already been happening. There have been remakes and reimaginings and all of this, all these fluffy words. But what's really happening is Hollywood is taking classic movies and they're politically correcting the crap out of them, and they're offering it up once again. They're erasing the original movies. Some of the original movies now are very hard to find, almost impossible to find on Blu-ray. I mean, you got to go back sometimes to VHS and Laserdisc even to try and find the original source material. And those are movies, folks. Again, we're getting into history books. I was telling them yesterday, we may see a point in time in this country. A lot of our young people deny it even happened. I'm talking, of course, about the Holocaust. We may see a point in time where history books are reflecting on the Third Reich in a positive manner, to where people look at that and they see it as a utopia rather than what it actually was. Who is writing the history books moving forward? Yeah. A lot of the history books have already been rewritten to death. I can tell you this firsthand. You go back, you read source material close to World War II, and you read a history book on World War II that was written last year. It's almost like they're talking about two different time periods entirely. Um, but specifically with the Bible. Let's get into the Bible for just a moment. And again, for the folks that are not spiritual or not religious, I'm not trying to offend you or anything, but this is a serious issue because these people, they have been openly rewriting history for a very long time now. Think about all of the monuments that have been taken down. Now, of course, there's controversy back and forth. These are offensive. Know their history. Sometimes history is offensive. Get over it. Blah blah blah. The monuments have come down. Public education. For anybody out there that doesn't know this, sometimes I'm like, it's not the 1950s anymore. Here's a perfect example. Public education in 2023 requires internet access. I don't know how many people out there don't actually know that. So the teaching goes on. I think it's called a Promethean board or something in the classroom, huge computer screen, touch screen, blah, blah, blah. Google Chromebooks are sent home with kids with the understanding that you have internet access at home. If you don't, the school will provide through funding and taxpayer funding internet access for the Chromebooks to work. But you are no longer given the option of paper and pencil and reading out of a standard book. And you would say, well, this is more convenient, John. This actually helps the parents and things. But I would counter that by saying, how do we know what's being taught via a Google Chromebook is accurate? You know what I mean? I'm not trying to dump all over Google, but I'm saying maybe they don't have the most accurate retelling of history, among other things. Maybe they give preference to certain viewpoints, leftist viewpoints, right, against conservative viewpoints. Spin. We're always talking about mainstream media and mainstream media's ability, and they all do it, to spin one way or the other to make you feel a certain way. Don't be fooled. All right. These search engines and Google with their Chromebooks, they're going to spin things a certain way. And kids are going to be educated accordingly. Folks, the Bible is next. Getting back to the Bible for a second. 30 years from now, will paper copies of the Bible even be a thing? Will they still be available? Will you be able to walk into a brick and mortar store and buy one? Folks, you might not be able to walk into a brick and mortar store at all. These things are probably gonna have drones delivering, warehouses. It's the future, right? 30 years from now, think about that long and hard for a second. 30 years from now, will you be able, or your kids or your grandkids, will they be able to walk in and buy a hard copy of the Holy Bible? I would gamble to say no. That's my personal opinion. I think that we're so fast becoming a digital world, all digital world. I don't think any hard copy books are going to be available in 30 years. I don't think any of your movies. I keep bringing movies up because there are some good patriotic movies out there. There's some very accurate movies that describe also historical events and things. They're going to be scrubbed. You're not going to have access to that source material. So if everything is digital, including the Bible, who translates that? That's the question I have. Who translates that Bible? Because every time there's translation, things get lost from translation to this translation on down the line. This is what we call a primary source. Get as close to the primary source as possible. Go as far back as you possibly can and get something around the time that it happened, not thousands of years later, written by somebody at Stanford in 2023. Translations matter. Here's why. The powers that be are already designing. They've admitted this in the wide open. Google it. They're already working on a one world religion, a one size fits all religion, and it's been pitched as everybody can live in peace and harmony, and there will be no more conflict. Blah blah blah. But of course, we know this is ridiculous. It's ridiculous because they're going to spin and they're going to cherry pick things out of all of the different religions and they're going to put them together. And you're really not supposed to do that. If you're a person of faith, you know this. So the question I have is how will people know 100 years from now that it's been done? I mean, again, we know it's ridiculous. We know that it's not cool to cherry pick from different religions, create a one size fits all because we know they're going to ban the rest at that point, okay? And they're only going to have the one. We know that's not cool, but we're not going to be here forever. How are the younger generations 100 years from now going to know that that even happened? How are they possibly going to access the original source material? They're just going to have this spun version and retelling, rewriting, if you will. I'll hear people sometimes in the comments say, if I can't hold it, it's not real. Of course, they're talking about crypto oftentimes when they say that, but folks, I don't like where this world is headed. I'm going to be honest with you, because we're heading into a world where we're not going to be able to hold much of anything. Pay attention to the people around you. All right. You can do this today, whenever. The next time you go out in public, pay attention to the people around you. Here's what I see at red lights. Pull up to a red light. I look around. Everybody's on their phone. They glance up at the light from time to time. They're just doing this. I go into doctor's offices. Everybody's doing this. Everywhere I go, this. Technology has already consumed 90+% of the population. They're going to accept and adopt whatever is delivered to them on their screens. A rewriting of the Bible, here you go. They're going to openly accept it, folks. A retelling of history, here you go. Stalin was a good man. He was a saint. Here you go. They're going to deliver this to 90+% of the people here in the United States, and they're just going to eat it up and they're never going to question it. Pay attention the next time you're out. See if you see what I see in this area. The term artificial intelligence, AI, it's a perfect term because when you get right down to it, There is no intelligence. It's artificial. These are computer programs. How can a computer program write a history book on World War II? Not only was it not there, it doesn't exist in the first place. The computer program, it exists online only. You understand what I'm saying? How can it write or rewrite? Because this is what's going to happen, folks. AI is going to create a new Bible. It's going to rewrite a new Bible. Now, whether it's a retelling of the King James Version or it's a, one size fits all Bible for all of the world religions, whatever, you get the point. AI is going to put that together. And AI technically does not even exist. I would love to live in a world where people went to the source material and they read books and memoirs that were written by people who were there, as opposed to a computer program randomly pulling facts out of the air and slapping them together. But that's where we're headed. Your history books, the Bible, your banking, your healthcare, it's all going to be done by artificial intelligence. And I wanted to warn you folks this morning. I'm not telling you to rush out and hoard physical media, but I'm also not going to sit here and lie to you and say that I'm not working on collecting as much of it as I can, the important stuff, the important books that are out there, especially the few movies that I absolutely want my grandkids to see one day because I want them to understand what patriotism was like. We're headed to a bad place in this world and here in the United States. Many of you know this. But again, just to close it out with this, um, the the digital deal, when things kind of reset, it's not just about the money. It's not just about the tracking. It's about recreating the world around you, including all of its history, and retelling it and spinning it in a way that's going to indoctrinate the youth 100 years from now. Let me know what you think in the comments if you don't mind, please. Take care. God bless.